Welcome to the Speak Hope Now podcast, and it's so great to see you here. We have a special guest with us. It is Pastor Brandon Glenn, and Pastor Brandon Glenn and I go back a little ways and just love his heart, love his spirit, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy this podcast here today. So Pastor Brandon, tell me a little bit about your childhood, your upbringing, your teenage years. Talk to me about all that.
Yeah, that sounds good. I grew up in this area in Columbia County, grew up going to a church. Thankful for mom and dad for giving me that example. Grew up hearing the gospel, responded to the gospel as a young boy, and grew up going to youth group, loved playing sports. Eventually I graduated from a public high school, but knew I wanted to go to a Christian college. And so went to a Bible college, but getting a graphic design degree.
Right.
And it was while I was there in college, my second semester junior year, I remember feeling that call to full-time ministry.
Wow.
And called my pastor back at home. I said, hey, this is what's going on. What do you think I should do with this call? And he said, well, you're really close to this end of your degree. You ought to finish that out and then see where God would take you. And so, so that's what we did, and ended up moving back to this area then after schooling, and was offered a job in graphic design.
Wow.
So kind of took that opportunity, and kind of life just kind of happened. And so took a little while to end up in full-time ministry, but that's kind of the back story of my past and growing up and getting to where we're at a little bit.
And so what was your life like in college? What college did you attend? And
so I went to Bob Jones University in Greenville, South Carolina.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was a good experience, just being immersed for 4 years, full chapel every day, praying before classes, having professors that cared about you and wanted to see you do well in the future, building relationships and finding people that aligned, with the same kind of biblical applications as you did. And having those friends, and I still have friends to this day.
Well, that's great.
From my undergrad experience. And
wow.
So, got a lot of experience in doing ministry outside of the normal context. And, when we were there, my wife now, Samantha, she was my girlfriend and fiance for some of those years. We did a church service every Sunday at a nursing home.
Oh, wow.
And just, we still talk about those Sundays sometimes, and just how neat it was to just be a part of this group of college kids just going around. It was a huge nursing home. They had so many different lobbies, and we'd go to different lobbies and just kind of do mini church services in each lobby. The nurses would bring the residents out.
Wow.
Just having the opportunity to serve and do some leadership as well. And that's, part of that experience of serving, doing ministry, but also being given those opportunities for leadership in ministry as well.
Who were some of the ministers or professors or leaders that you came across while you were there at Bob Jones University and or over the years that really influenced your life, influenced your ministry?
Yeah. In undergrad, there were a couple of professors, especially in graphic design, that really helped me understand how to make design and maybe what some would call like a secular ministry, how to use that to evangelize and to just make Christ's reflection into the world. One of those professors is Jay Bopp. He's still a professor there.
Wow.
And so he really helped me understand how I could make a graphic design career my own. And so I did do graphic design right out of college, working for an agency. That job lasted about 5, maybe 6 years. And since then, I've been able to take graphic design and do it on my own.
Wow.
And kind of allow for some side income and that kind of stuff. So that's been, a pretty cool blessing.
Sure.
There's another professor there at Bob Jones. His name is John Andrews. And again, he just kind of showed me how to be an artist in the secular world,
Wow.
but also graphic design. And he kind of leaned a little bit more towards digital stuff, which is what I would be going into. And so that was really good too. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you've used that graphic design in everything that you've done in church ministry.
Yeah. It's been kind of a blessing,
Sure.
for I at least I hope that it is for the churches that I've been a part of, to say, I can offer some design skills in addition to regular pastoral work. But
things
also,
like what? Like websites?
Yeah, website. We were talking about some video stuff. I don't love doing that stuff, but I can do that. I enjoy doing website work, making, especially the back end of things, and making sure that things function properly and function well, at the same time of making it look appealing and the design aspect of it too. Yeah,
that's awesome. Paul was a tent maker, right?
Right.
And so he had to earn that income on the side. Right. And everywhere he went, which just astonishes me, everywhere he went, he collected an offering, but he never received that for himself. He always, paid that forward, so to speak.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of the same thing, that God has, given you this skill set, and you got a degree in that skill set, and you're able to earn a living off of that.
Right.
You were also in ministry as well. I think when I met you, you had a real strong desire to go into youth ministry.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that call there. And
So, after being in graphic design, working for an ad agency, that job lasted out of college 5 or 6 years. I had a friend of mine offer me a job doing trucking. And so I was a dispatcher for a trucking company for another 5 or 6 years. Unfortunately, the hours were kind of cut back there, and had a mortgage and a family to take care of. And at the time, Samantha, my wife, and I knew that we were called to full-time ministry. And so we were like, all right, God, we know this is you saying, I'm ready for you to answer that call. And so that was in the spring of 2016 that we finally said yes to the call. I don't know, when I would say that official call came, probably back in that junior year of college.
Sure.
And so maybe it took that long to actually say yes. But I think God also used that time in between to give me some life experience and some background that, maybe I wouldn't have had if I would have just jumped right from college to full-time ministry. But in that springtime of 2016, we said yes to full-time ministry.
Wow.
At the time, we were already volunteering at Shiloh's youth group.
Sure.
And we were mostly working with middle school students at the time. And Garrett was the head youth leader, youth pastor. And we said, and he was a good friend of mine, and I didn't know who else to go to. So I went to him and I said, hey, we want to go into full-time ministry, and I don't know what that looks like. What does that mean? Do I need more schooling? Like, what do you think?
Right.
And so for him, he actually had an idea that he was probably going to be leaving our church and going to a different ministry, but he wasn't totally sure that was going to happen. And,
right.
But he said, I think this might happen. I'm not sure. If that does happen, I would recommend you to take over the youth ministry program. You have enough Bible credits and Bible knowledge coming from a Bible college, even though your degree isn't in that, and you could get more schooling if you want to. And so, that's how we got into full-time ministry, that we felt called to apply then, because Garrett did leave. And the elders also felt that was God, and we just said, hey, God's opening doors for us. And that was a great experience. So much fun just working with teenagers all the time. And youth ministry is so much fun. I love it. Still love it to this day.
And it was a strong ministry. I mean, when we really say that God calls some to, plant, water, and some to see things grow, you were in a period of time where you were just seeing some excellent growth, there at Shiloh. I know it has its ups and downs, but it was a phenomenal ministry to step into.
Yeah. I mean, I want to give Garrett a lot of credit because he kind of took a youth program that was ready to be restarted. He put in the hard work of restarting that, casting a brand new vision. And we as volunteer leaders at the time were part of his crew coming up with that vision together. Right. But he was leading that. And so he really set the kind of the stonework, the foundation for us to then take over once he left and kind of build on top of that. Like the youth program was called a 412 chat. You remember that?
Yeah.
And so it was see Colossians, all from chapter 4, verse 12 of these books: Colossians, Hebrews, Acts, and First Timothy chat. And so those are the things that those verses talk about: prayer and salvation and the Word of God.
Right.
Those are the things that if those teens are doing those on their own, then you're winning.
Yeah.
And so Garrett had those already set up, and so we just took those and exploded, just tried to build on top of them. And the leadership team that we inherited when we took over ministry was great. Mm-hmm. And then we were able to add some other key leaders into those areas. And then when we see those leaders being trained well, those leaders were in turn training other leaders to lead more small groups within the youth program.
Incredible.
And it was all about relationships, And
what better person to lead that than you, Brandon? You are extremely talented. And I know you don't give yourself that much credit. You're a humble man, but you are extremely talented. I mean, you can play almost anything on a guitar.
I would definitely not give myself that kind of credit.
Yeah. Well, I've heard you, man, and you are pretty incredible. I mean, even reading music, not too many guitarists can read music as well. I mean, so you're pretty brilliant, and you have this musical gift as well. Talk to me a little bit about that musical gift. How did you discover that gift of playing the guitar, singing?
Yeah. So, I've just always found the guitar really fascinating. My dad played the guitar growing up. And most of the time, it was him pulling the guitar out of the case at the house and just messing around, just saying, this is what me and my friends would play growing up. And there's a lot of old country music and that kind of stuff. So it was a lot of fun doing that. And I wanted to play that. And I wanted to play songs that I was hearing on the radio. I also, I guess, I enjoy all different styles and genres of music. So I try to learn different styles and stuff. So he would teach me chords. And I was actually just talking with a friend tonight at dinner about this. My dad was right-handed and I'm left-handed. And so as I'm playing the guitar, I can watch, and if he's facing me, I can just kind of mirror his, finger patterns.
Wow.
And so, he just kind of was teaching me a few chords. I mean, I'm not the most musical person, but he was able to teach me chords, and so I've just learned from there. And so I can at least play chords and strum and that kind of stuff.
Well, give yourself some credit because I've heard you, and you're really excellent. Who were some of your musical influences growing up?
Are you talking band?
Sure, band.
That I listened to? Oh man. I listen to so many different things.
I know we have a shared Need to Breathe passion. They just put out a new album. I know we have that shared interest there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think. I listen to so much stuff. Anything from the Gaithers to MXPX. Punk rock stuff. Yeah. And then maybe a little bit of rap or hip hop or something. But everything in between, just general pop music, country music, that kind of stuff I enjoyed listening to.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so you were at Shiloh, you were in youth ministry, and then God calls you into pastoral ministry.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that journey. You went down this path with the Christian Missionary Alliance.
Right.
Had to study to get ordination. That's not an easy task.
Right.
Tell me about that journey.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, if I didn't feel that God was calling me to plant a church, I probably would have stayed at Shiloh just doing youth ministry, because I enjoyed it so much. It was very comfortable for me. I felt like, and Samantha, my wife, enjoyed it too.
Sure.
We just enjoyed working with teenagers, enjoyed working with our leadership team that we had there, and you were part of that for a little while. We just really enjoyed that. But yeah, God called us to take a step out of our comfort zones and plant a church. And we really didn't know what that was all about, where it would be, the timing of all of that. And then I got connected. I met a guy, his name is David Dixon. He is the one who planted the Iron Mill Church in Danville, which is associated with the Christian Missionary Alliance. And we get to talking, and he was telling me about planting this church. And at that time, he was probably a couple years in, maybe 3 years into the church plant. And we're having coffee, and I just said, yeah, that's really cool. Like, my wife and I feel like someday we'll plant a church. And he's like, what do you mean by someday? Like, we're seeking a resident right now to come on and learn how to church plant. I was like, I don't know, maybe, And so we actually considered that. And we said, God, if you want this to happen, like, we'll keep going down this path, and you'll open the doors if you want it to happen. And God kind of did close the door in the timing of things. So David actually went on to the district office.
Oh, wow.
And so Iron Mill was without a pastor for a short period of time. Then they brought on Jason Sullivan. And Jason had the same vision and goals that David did as far as bringing on residents and planting churches.
Wow.
The whole mission or vision behind Iron Mill is for them to be a church planting hub.
Yeah.
Bring in residents, train them for about 2 years, and then send them out.
Wow.
And so, with Jason having that same vision, we met with him, and him and I clicked pretty well.
Wow.
And went there to do a 2-year residency. And with the Christian Missionary Alliance, we really felt like the training was valuable there. They do what they call a greenhouse program. So over the course of 2 years, it's broken up into 6-month chunks, these different phases. I'm going to try to remember them off the top of my head. The first one is look, and then it's learn, then lead, and launch.
Wow.
So there's 4 phases. And essentially the first phase, you're just kind of observing what their culture is like. And during that first 6 months, I tried to experience everything that I possibly could. Tried to visit every small group that they had available. Tried to go to at least one deacons meeting. They considered me an elder there. So I went to the elders meeting, experienced how that was led and run. Went to trustees meetings and all these different outreach events and kids ministry and everything. Just tried to experience their culture so that I could soak that in to ultimately replicate it. But that first phase was all about me soaking in and observing. And then learn is learning the why behind they do different things. And then the lead is beginning to lead some ministries.
So learn, tell me that again. Learn is learning the why behind.
Why are they doing things the way that they're doing them?
Okay.
So one of the things that was of value at Iron Mill, for example, is having a simple church.
Okay.
And part of that is, behind that is having a go mentality.
Gotcha.
And if you're having all of the programs at the church, you're not really having a go mentality. You're inviting people to come to you to experience whatever ministry it is that they have going on. And not that there's not good intentions behind that, but their specific vision, their mission is to go. And so whatever program they have, they'd rather do it in a public space. Like, let's rent a room at the library, or go to the community center and do something. Right. Just understanding why they're doing it that way.
Yeah.
They're not having small groups in the church building. They're doing them all in homes in the community.
Interesting.
So, just learning the why behind that. And also with each phase, I am recommended, or I shouldn't say recommended, we partner together to figure out what books to read for myself. And so most of the time those books have something to do with what I'm learning in that phase. Yeah. So that was really helpful.
Wow.
Too. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And the other ones were
So look, learn, lead.
Lead.
So that's when I began to lead different ministries within
Okay.
the church.
At Iron Mill.
At Iron Mill, yeah. So the only exception to that was I almost from the beginnings kind of took over their youth ministry.
Okay.
Since I was, versed in doing that,
Sure.
experienced in doing that. We kind of started, the youth ministry was kind of already started by Pastor Jason,
Okay.
who was also a youth pastor, like a veteran youth
Wow.
pastor for like,
Wow.
I'm not even sure. I should know how many years, but like more than
A long
10,
time.
15 years. And so he was well versed in youth ministry, and he got that started at Iron Mill.
Wow.
And then when I came on, we kind of co-led it a little bit together, and then he transitioned out so that he could focus more on small group ministry, and then I would do youth ministry. And so we brought on some more volunteer leaders, and then eventually I phased out of that as I moved into the launch phase.
Gotcha.
And that launch phase was more of me focused on our community in Berwick.
Okay.
And so we started a small group in Berwick.
Gotcha.
Even though I was still at Iron Mill, we knew that that launch phase was coming.
And so I'm sure in between the lead and the launch, you were hashing out, what are we going to call the church?
Yeah.
How did you guys come up with the name of the church? I know you have Iron Mill and Danville.
Right.
And so Iron Mill and Danville kind of go hand in hand. It's like a historic name.
Right. It's part of their heritage.
When I went and did the church plant in Drums, Pennsylvania, we had one of our team leaders say, I wonder what would happen if we changed the name of our church to maybe a Catholic name.
Oh, yeah.
Like something with Peter, Paul, or Mary.
Yeah.
Now he was just joking around a little bit.
That's interesting.
That's the name of a band, but he was like, hey, I wonder if something like that would work to kind of attract Catholics.
Right.
But it sounds like the Christian Missionary Alliance has figured out something with trying to attract people through the history of the town. Is that really what went down with the name?
I don't know if that's necessarily a Christian Missionary Alliance thing or just an Iron Mill thing.
Okay.
But that was something that we considered when we were deciding, is this our final name or not? Like one of the big pros was, okay, this has to do with the heritage of our town. Foundry is all about the heritage of Berwick. Is it okay if I share that?
Sure.
So back in, I don't even know when it started, but there's the American car Foundry.
Yeah.
And they made rail cars and subway cars. And even to this day, so there's a museum right next to the YMCA, and they'll tell you a little bit of the history of the American car Foundry. They say that around 70% of the subway cars in New York City today were actually manufactured in Berwick.
Interesting.
They've been, refabbed or whatever on the inside, but the body came from Berwick, PA.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty cool.
Did you know that Berwick has an underground railroad?
I've heard that.
Yeah.
Is it true?
It is very true. Because Hitler had Berwick on the top 10 list of places to hit because we were a tank producing town.
Yeah.
They created this underground railroad that went from Berwick all the way up to New York to get all the people to evacuate in case there was a bomb threat.
Okay.
So it's really awesome that God placed it on your heart and your team's heart to come up with Foundry Church.
Right.
Because I think it will really, grab the soul of the community.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
You launched this church not too long ago.
Yeah, 2
right?
weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
At the time of this recording, 2
What
weeks
was
ago.
that? What was the date? What was the specific date?
September 10th was our launch date.
Wow.
And we chose that date because that's the first Sunday after Labor Day weekend. We figure that's when people start to get into routine and going back to school, and the summer's it's over basically. So that's why we chose that date. And so
you have children's ministry.
Yeah.
You do have home groups. You started with home groups, right?
Right. Yeah.
And you had a Sunday morning service. Mm-hmm. It was about an hour long, 15 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, probably.
And you have kind of like a makeshift free cafe with coffee and pastries and stuff for the kids and for adults. Right. I mean, it was a really nice thing that you were offering there for the community. Yeah, and it's in the Eagles building, right?
Yeah.
God,
that's
really.
Another kind of a cool thing about the name too. So the Eagles building is owned by BIDA, the Berwick Industrial Development Association.
Okay.
They own the property that the Foundry was on.
Really?
Yeah, before it shut down. So, now it's part
It's
of
all
the industrial
interconnected.
part. But yeah, it's just really neat.
And maybe God will provide one of those factories there.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of neat.
Who
Convert it
knows?
all into a
Yeah.
church. And
Yeah. Even before we picked that name, our family took a photo from a field that kind of overlooks the town of Berwick,
Wow.
right near our house. And in the distant background, we didn't even know what the buildings were, but it turns out those buildings are the American Foundry. Yeah. It's just really cool.
And now God has used you to bring Foundry Church
Yeah.
to the Berwick area.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. And can you share with our audience the address? I know that the
definitely.
Eagles building, share with them the address.
Yeah.
You have live stream. Are you
We're
doing
still
live
working
stream? You're working on
We're still working on that. We have some audio recordings of sermons
Okay.
right now.
on a website?
Yeah. So we're at
That you made, right?
Yeah, right.
With your
yes.
okay.
Yeah. So we're at foundrychurchberwick.com, and our address is 107 South Market Street in Berwick.
Thank you, Brandon, for being here for this
Thank you,
podcast. And thank you for watching this Speak Hope Now podcast with Brandon Glenn. I want to encourage you, if you're in our area, go check out the Foundry Church, visit his church, and worship the Lord with him and his team. And I know you'll find yourself to be blessed, and you'll feel the Spirit there at his church. Hey, thank you for watching the Speak Hope Now podcast, and we'll look forward to seeing you here in the future.